One might say I'm the socks rustler. I rustle up some socks from a guy that was sleeping on the streets. And that's sort of what this whole game's about. You're doing a lot of rustling, and it's called Rustler. And it's pretty much GTA meets open world medieval times. And yeah, that sounds like a really cool concept. For sure, and the graphics on maximum settings look really cool. They really reminded me of like Diablo 3, even though that game's a little bit dated now. But it kind of looks like has that pastel-y look. So you can steal horses in this game. Again, it's like GTA, but in the medieval times. You can kill the guards. There's a number of guards on patrol going around, just making people stay out of trouble. There's peasants walking around in this game. It's got a top-down view, so that's why like the GTA is an immediate comparison that comes to mind. There's a lot of modern jokes I feel like that are scattered in this game, and it makes sense because this game came out this year, but it kind of feels like out of place. Some of the jokes, like one example is there's a cow on top of a roof with like I don't know if it's paint or what it is, maybe like cow feed or something on the cow, and it says horse. So just things like that, like it's funny, but like it sort of feels out of place that that's a thing. So it's like a very old school, like 1980s, 1990s over the top view, like a lot of the games that came out then. You don't really see games like that anymore. The last ones I think that were like this, again, was like the first few GTA games. It seems like the gameplay is very similar to the Bully games on the PS2, where you're going around and you're just doing tricks and acquiring status. It's pretty much the story is your surf character named Guy, and he's trying to sneak his way into a big tournament that's being held. And obviously Guy is a basic surf, so there's no chance, legal chance, that he could make it into this big tournament. So he has to steal horses. So he steals like a knight's horse, and from there makes his way up to have stature in this town to participate in this big tournament. They don't elaborate, at least at the beginning, what kind of tournament it is, like whether it's a model show or fashion show or who knows, but I assume it's like some sort of archery contest or jousting. There's skill sets, but it doesn't really change the game's mechanics, which is kind of disappointing. The interactions with the game on the whole seem very low level, in the sense that the game will simply reset everything if you leave that area, and there'll be no like long-term consequences, which is kind of a shame. I know that it's hard for a game to be programmed to like recognize you as you progress through it, or can be, but this game doesn't even do that, unfortunately. And like unfortunately, the first thing you notice outside of the graphics, the pastel graphics, is the controls are really not intuitive at all. So you pretty much have to constantly correct which way you're going. When you're on foot, unfortunately it's far worse than when you're on a horse. And when you're on a horse, the game controls the way that you would expect it to. But when you're just a character walking in a field, you just follow like the WASD keys, and like it doesn't seem fluid for some reason. And so when you use the mouse to point in the direction you want to go, the guy sort of walks like sideways. It's just unless you've played it, you won't understand 100% what I mean. But it just feels very chunky, clunky, whatever you want to call it. Which is unfortunate, because like that's the first impression you have. You don't start on a horse, and then later it's easier to ride the horse than to walk as the character. Yeah, so you have to constantly correct which way you're facing, which I thought was disappointing. And I had to be really mindful of how I was moving. Like when I was on the horse, and I stole the knight's horse, you have like a whole patrol racing after you, and you have to go at really fast speeds, because the patrols, they're not stupid like in GTA where they lose you and they're like, where did you go? No, they're right behind you. Like, you have to give them a good chase and really shrug them off. And that's kind of tricky because they're just different obstacles like fences, the castle walls, trees, people. I mean, you can run over people too, but again, that's going to increase your wanted level in this game. So just things like that make it just harder to just plow through with a horse in this game. I actually got stuck in the corner. I was trying to get a piece of meat or some food near a fence, so I tried to ride in as the horse and I couldn't turn as the horse, so there's some weird glitches in that sense. The fighting is a bit too simple, I found. Like, I'm not sure if I'm expecting Jackie Chan or something complicated, but there's pretty much the left kick will do punches, or you'll swing a sword, or whatever else you can pick up in this game, and the right you can block. So the game puts you into a fight pretty much right at the beginning of the game, and the block, I found, like, it was very slow to put your dukes up to block, and the peasant is surprisingly able to defend himself surprisingly, and is constantly blocking, so you're like swinging away and it's trying to tell you, okay, just parry the punches the peasant's going to throw at you, but then the peasant doesn't throw any punches, so you're sort of stuck there like, okay, I'm just going to strong arm and like keep punching until hopefully this this peasant like lets up his blocking, because it's just ridiculous how much this peasant is blocking your punches. I mean, for a peasant, like, I understand, like, someone that's used to fighting in a brawl in the tavern, but like, if it's a random peasant, like, geez, he's fighting like he's a skilled like fighter here. So that's what I thought was kind of silly. Like, I don't know what the later fights are like, but if a peasant can defend himself that well, like, wow. And that's the first fight in the game. So yeah, there's punch swing and then there's a block and roll. The roll, I think, was best if you like rolled in towards the person and then tried to punch, like roll then punch. But other than that, I couldn't find a use for it. It didn't seem very useful if you were getting punched at. Apparently quest checkpoints were added in recently, but then I found like I wasn't successful, I have to admit, to getting the knight's horse, and the patrol actually got me, and I thought, okay, well, the game's going to put me back to where I was right before I mounted on the horse and stole it. But no, the game seemed to put me right at the meeting before that, so I was a little bit disappointed. You know, that actually what stopped caused me to stop playing the game today, because I lost like 10 minutes of running over there, which I think is like a really big error on the game's part, to like not put you exactly where you were on your last quest. You know, if you've started a quest, they should put you there. They shouldn't put you, you know, way out in the middle of the fields having to go back to that meeting again, and you know, like, no one's going to play a game where you have to redo a scene you already did. But yeah, it would be nice if you could go inside the buildings. Like, when you first start this game, it seems like, okay, there's a lot to do, there's a lot to see, but then once you start walking around, you realize like this open world is actually a very limited world. It's not as open as you first perceive it as, because you can't go inside those buildings. But seeing how large the map is, I can sort of forgive the game for that and the developers, because there's a lot already being loaded in. But still, it's kind of like jarring to be an open world game and you can't even go inside the buildings. But if there's, you know, obviously they tried to go for fluidity over the macro details, but it feels like the developers were trying to make this impressive huge world, but then, you know, for some reason or another, they had to limit things that you could do, and the on-foot controls actually really slow down like the fun as well. I paid $20 for this. Full price is $28. I would definitely say this is a game you get for $10-15. It doesn't really fit, it doesn't really fill that like GTA niche as well, at least right now as the game is. I'd give it a 7.5. I feel like that's really generous. It's a much better concept, like GTA medieval times. You can do stuff, steal horses and stuff. I didn't see any stealing of food, like just other stuff like that would be interesting. But yeah, I would definitely say like it just doesn't execute the way that I would have liked a GTA pseudo clone would. So let's go rustle up some birds and get some nice horses. Ciao.